Okay, so let's summarize on the contact flows before we go to routing profiles. Let's take a look at the same picture we saw before, with a little bit more information, okay? So you got your customers calling in and they're hitting on connect. Some callers might use chat, but let's say we're looking at the call flow right now. The user is calling inbound. And Amazon Connect is taking the phone number and associating it with the workflow. And with a workflow, we have the ability to define certain flows. And within that flow, there's these blocks that can be configured. We could use text to speech. Behind the scenes, we could use Poly. We could transcribe the voice recordings. There's different managed services that we can use. This particular column is more like the first line of defense, right? The call that's getting recorded is going into the S3 bucket. So we didn't use Lex, we didn't use Lambda, and we didn't configure Kinesis either. So what we have in our last configuration is a contact flow where Connect is sending recordings and JSON files with what's called chat transcripts to the S3 bucket. And so there's files associated with in the bucket that are keeping track of the customer's call, the agent's communication, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, behind the scenes, there's different AI services that are used and we didn't put CloudWatch on here, but the CloudWatch is being used as well. So anyway, for contact flows, we saw that there was a WYSIWYG editor, I call it, for drag and drop. We were capable of saving, publishing, versioning, importing, and exporting contact flows. And there's a concept of modules, which we'll talk about later. Um, but you can group these contact flows into a module. And and the goal is to use skill-based routing, which means we're putting certain calls into a queue where if it's a sales queue, it's a sales expert. If the call is going into a technical support queue, it's a technical support expert. And we're getting high quality call recordings because Amazon's making sure that happen. Now I can give you a um, just keep in mind that the agents at their locations and the devices they're using, and anything could affect a customer or agent complaining about something. So just keep that in mind. There's contact trace records, there's agent records, and like I said, there's customer recordings and agent recordings, and they could be separated because there's two voices talking, and the two recordings can be separated. We configured it to record both the customer and agent at the same time. And and then we have things like customer profile attributes, uh, and 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 basically you can connect this to Salesforce. So when a user calls in and the agent picks up the phone, the Salesforce data for the user comes into the agent workspace, and the agent could see everything about the customer, and you can connect this to ServiceNow and basically look at the cases that are open for the user, etc. And for the blocks, we were capable of doing, depending on what block you're dropping and dragging, and what flow that you're in. There's different inputs. You can connect to lambdas. You can connect to Lex bots. A lambda would typically be connected if you need to get some information from DynamoDB and pump it back into the context of the workflow. Um, and we have contact attributes. Contact attributes are the data that a particular block or workflow can use, and they could come from the system. They could be user defined. They could be flow scoped. They could be agent attributes. And so, you know, anything can be used in the flow and it could be used in the text to speech. So you would expect a prompt to say, "Hello, Mary. Thank you for being a gold customer. What can I do for you today?" So that particular prompt is using some attributes, and where those attributes come from can be different places, but I kind of view it as a user profile attributes. But I could find user-defined attributes and values, and I could get those values from different places using lambdas. So it's very flexible. Um, and you could, different flow block can use different attributes. Just keep that in mind. Some of the flows don't involve the agent, so you won't be needing the agent attributes, and some flows do, and you might use the agent attributes, etc. So that's what we wanted to just follow up one more video with contact flows, just so you understand that you know, and one more thing, when the customer calls in a phone number and they hit a flow, this flow could call other flows, and these other flows can call other services. So you'll see a wide variety of contact flows and they grow. The number of flows grow. Now keep in mind, manually, it looks like very manageable and very simple to do manually. But when you're trying to automate this stuff, it gets very complicated because if I have a contact flow which uses a lambda, I need to deploy the lambda in order to get the ARN of the lambda, the reference to the lambda to use in the flow and flow block, and my flow block is calling the lambda has to exist. I have to be able to reference it, those types of things. So when it comes to uh, any Amazon configuration, when it comes to that, the way I see it is, if you're building an API, you want an API, a Lambda, DynamoDB table, whatever you need, the API can be self-contained. If you're building some large scale stuff, you might want to just have all your Lambdas and control your assets with Cloud Development Kit. Deploy all your Lambda, build all your Lambdas, deploy all your Lambdas, um, uh, and and do everything at once. So it all depends on what you do, but make no mistake, as simple as some of this stuff is, the automation is difficult. So if this flow uses Lambda and uses a Lexbot, I would need the Lexbot, I would need the Lambda, I would need the S3 bucket before I do anything. So I have to deploy those resources before I deploy the contact flow and the block. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let's go on to our next video.